Welcome to Signal, the podcast that raises your frequency. I'm Mory Fontanez.
And I'm Melissa Grushka.
And today we're going to talk about decapitalizing self-care. Bean, are you intrigued?
I care.
Hi, Bean. What's up?
Hi. You just made the most amazing face at me after I said, I care. You looked at me with absolute horror in your eyes.
I never know how you're going to respond to those intros. So it's fun. It's a fun adventure.
What's fun is I never know how I'm going to respond either. So it's like a blind experiment on both ends.
100%. What's going? First of all, congratulations on hosting the super spreader event of the year.
Oh, Jesus. That's my, I'm just going to break into it. My cringe is that I have COVID, as do a bunch of people who were at my daughter's bat mitzvah, which probably by the time this airs was so long ago. But it turns out I hosted a super spreader and I have lots of guilt, in addition to the fact that I have COVID and I don't even know what to do with COVID anymore.
How are you feeling?
Where we go. I feel fine. I have some lung pain in my upper left quadrant. That's it.
That's crazy. When you say lung pain, it just seems really intense to me. You were like, that's what COVID is, dummy.
It is what COVID is, but that's why I was having an argument with Corey this morning. It wasn't an argument. He's always like, COVID is like a cold now. And I was like, COVID is not like a cold because it really wreaks havoc on your body. I lost taste for a few days.
You did?
Yeah. Do you remember last time I had COVID? I lost taste for like 5 months.
Yeah.
Like full taste. That is some crazy shit. Like, what kind of virus is doing that?
Yeah. Well, you lose taste and smell when you have a cold too, but it's very temporary.
I was never congested. I was congested like very mildly. I just lost my taste. Plus, last time I had it, I lost my taste for 5 months.
Yeah, that's crazy. Wait, are you feeling like full energy though? I mean, you look good.
Yeah, I slept for like a full day. When earlier this week, I slept an entire day. And I don't know if that was COVID or like just general exhaustion or what it was. But I think I like let myself sleep the entire day because I realized I had COVID at that point. And then I was like, okay, now it's time to sit down and rest. I almost feel like my body forced me into it.
Totally. I kind of think that sometimes we get sick when our bodies are like, please just stop it.
Yeah. That my body was
just lay down
at that place. And I was like, no, nobody, no. And it was like, you need self-care. And I was like, no.
And then it said, here's COVID. Lay down.
And then it lay down and then do an episode on how important self-care is.
Yeah, that's true. Oh, Beanie, I'm sorry. I'm glad you're okay though. We were wondering if we'd be able to record today, but you pulled it out.
Nervous. We did pull it out. It's creepy. Anyway, give me a delight. Can you delight it up?
Oh, I have one of each actually. I have a cringe. I have a funny cringe. It's tiny. And then I have a delight. This week. So TJ and I are thinking of doing some stuff with the house. And so I had like a mortgage question. And I have this old client who is in the industry, mortgage industry. But I also have a current client who is amazing. And she's an actress and I coach her, who's in my phone as well. And they have the same name. And so I went to text the old mortgage client and I texted the current client with literally the most like specific questions about mortgages and like, home renovation loans.
Now that I know the names, I know who it was.
You know,
I saw the name in your calendar and now I know. She must have been like, oh, I'd love to help you with that.
But you know how sweet she is. She literally responded and was like, I don't know much about that, but I'm going to ask my husband.
That's what I said. She was probably super kind in her response. She probably wasn't even like weird.
Not at all. And she goes, aren't we meeting in an hour? And I was like, meeting in an hour? Oh my God.
Oh,
so that was my little cringe moment. Okay. My delight is that I am going to, in a couple of days, I'm going to do EMDR.
Oh, you are?
Yes, I'm very excited. Wait, I want to make sure I say what EMDR stands for. Do you know?
Yeah, I've done it before.
What does it stand for?
Oh, I don't know what it stands for.
Okay, I'm going to say EMDR therapy. EMDR stands for, it's a mental health treatment technique.
Magnetic.
What?
Something.
No, eye movement desensitization and reprocessing. Correct. So anyway, EMDR is used to help you like heal old trauma. It's been the person who discovered it around the Vietnam War. She was a psychotherapist. She was walking through the park. She was depressed about something. She was looking up at the trees And she noticed that when the light would come through the trees and come off the trees, she noticed like she felt better based on the way the light was like flashing in her eyes. So she was like, hold on a minute. So she went and like put this research study together and researched Vietnam vets and found that when you do some form of technique like tapping the body or using light while you bring up the memory, it actually helps release the trauma from that memory.
When I did EMDR, there was also sound in my ears.
Oh, what did you do your EMDR for?
It was old and it was a long time ago.
Okay. Mine is I'm trying to really settle on exactly what I want to achieve, but it's around this like money trauma, money fear that I have.
Yeah.
And so I'm going to go do EMDR on money trauma and fear to see if I can release it and stop letting it.
That. I love that alternative approach.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I will let you guys know next
I'm very
time,
curious.
or in 2
when are you
episodes
going?
from now. I'm going this Monday.
I just like picked up my phone to look at the date. I was like, when will you be there?
I will be there on Monday and I will let you know.
You're going on Memorial Day?
Yeah.
What? That's strange. It's a strange way to celebrate Memorial Day. It's strange that they're open.
Well, but think about how free my calendar is that day. I was like, this is the one day I can do this.
It's literally true. Although you did just get a cancellation for Tuesday. Anyway.
Okay.
I'm going to fill that real fast.
To clarify, Bean has been the best Bean forever, and she also does some executive assistant stuff for me.
I love it.
It's the nicest freaking situation I've ever had.
No, I mean, you
it is.
Me. It's not like I'm doing it for
But you also are so like you are so thoughtful about my calendar.
Your calendar has been stacked to death, and I just feel tremendous guilt all the time when I look at your days, honestly. I mean,
will say sometimes I have an hour to eat lunch and then you'll stick something in there and I'll be like, mother, why does she hate me today?
Because I tried. There's so few slots left that I have to steal them. I'll leave your Tuesday open. I was going to fill it.
Tuesdays with Mory. No, it's okay. Anyway, so that's my delight. And I'll let you know what happens after I do it. All right. Should we, to that point, actually, this is a way of taking care of myself. And today we wanted to talk about self-care. But as Bean and I and Anais, our producer, were talking about this, we were like, okay, what's the angle of self-care that we care so much about? And we all realize that the common theme is that self-care right now in our culture is so synonymous with purchasing things or spending money to go on retreats. Like it's so related to having and spending money. And so we thought, oh, okay, the angle really is the decapitalization of self-care. And why we want to do this episode is because we're hoping to offer you a reframe that brings you back to self-care as what I call soul care, but allowing self-care to be a highway into taking care of your inner world and connecting to yourself.
Soul care, we kind of dropped the ball on this, but for a while we had a whole thing going where we were going to make an apparel line that was associated with the podcast, and we were going to randomly pull phrases that we use and just make them into clothing. And I really think soul care should be a shirt.
I don't think we dropped the ball. I think we just keep a little notes tab with all of our great phrases.
Yeah, and one day there'll be a
merch line, you guys.
Merch line, Signal merch line, soul care. Check it out. Anyway, I also feel like a phony because I literally just paid to book a retreat for some self-care.
No, but I think that's
it can encompass. Yes.
I think that's my point. Is I don't want to create shame around spending money on yourself or spending money to facilitate self-care. I think that is awesome. And by the way, we both do it, so we'd be hypocrites if we said we didn't. Ask the med spa we both go to. But I think
I go to a dermatologist. Thank you very much.
Oh, okay. Dermatologist. Wink, wink. I think that if we don't use the opportunities when you're paying for that massage, when you're buying that heat wrap for around your neck, like if you don't use the opportunity in that moment of self-care, you love my examples.
Heat wrap for around your neck? Is that a thing?
Isn't it?
I did just get one of those red light masks, which I am
you
very feeling.
Wait, aren't those $1 bajillion?
Well, my physical therapist is an angel up from above, and she has hookups everywhere and was
Wow.
able to purchase me one at a very affordable rate.
I think I danced with your physical therapist at the bot.
I bet you did. She is also a good friend. Anyway, I'm sorry, continue.
Wait, have you used it yet?
Yeah, of course. It's
She's
great.
eating.
I love
She
it.
was like, I'm done talking. You talk. I'm going to eat my
I love
snacks
it.
now.
I think it's great.
What does it do?
It's just red light therapy, which is honestly good for all places in your body, but this helps with like fine lines, wrinkles,
Oh.
So treat yourself. But
Okay, I will be checking out your face.
Talk about it.
Yeah.
Okay.
You're like, let's everyone go buy this mask. Okay, done. What I was saying, thank you very much.
Yeah.
For that tangent, is that when you're putting that heat mask on, not the heat wrap for your neck. I do think that's a thing. Anyway, when you put that heat mask, when you put that red light mask on and you're laying there, if we don't use those opportunities as a way to connect to our inner world, we're missing the opportunity. We're missing what self-care is providing. That's all this episode is trying to say, not don't go do it. It's like do it with intention of connecting to self. And we want to talk about how you do that. But before we do, you know that we got some origin stories of self-care.
My favorite thing when you tell me history. In fact, when you broke into the Vietnam War situation, I was like, oh, already up top, we're going to do some history on our banter. Let's do it. Let's weave that in.
TJ the other day, he listens to Signal when he's showering. Aww. And the other day, he's getting ready. He goes, babe, I'm really missing the history. I was like, okay, well, we're making this podcast for you, so no worries. It's coming back.
TJ's our target audience.
Here's what I found when I looked into the origins of self-care that I think is the most important thing to say. Self-care as a concept is so attributable to Black activists, to LGBTQ plus activists around the 60s that were really focused on this concept of self-care as a way for people of color and for LGBTQ people to survive the world that they were existing in that was so oppressive. So self-care's origin is very, 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 very rooted in Black activism and LGBTQ activism. And I think that's important because like everything, it has now been pulled from those communities and made very white and capitalized. And particularly, you see a lot of white women sharing and selling self-care, which is fine. But again, I just think, like we need to always understand and pay homage to the origins of things.
Agreed.
Otherwise, it becomes, what is the word? God damn it.
Diluted.
No. Appropriation.
Ugh.
Otherwise, it becomes appropriation. So let's talk about some of
every time you're stuck on a word, I give you the wrong word. Like 100 out of 100 times I do it. 100% of the time, it works every time.
You guys, that's our other drinking game. If I get stuck on a word and Bean gives me the wrong word, take a drink of your water. Hydrate.
Hydrate. Self-care.
So a couple of key figures. So as I looked into this, it's like, okay, cool. Well, who, how, what? Audre Lorde is really a name that you hear a lot when you think about this idea of self-care as it relates to community care as a way of survival. So Audre Lorde is, she was born in 1934, but again, a lot of her work is in the 60s. She's a Black feminist, a poet, and a civil rights activist. And she really used her writing to shine a light on her experience of the world as a Black lesbian woman. And she often, she's credited with framing self-care as a radical act of self-preservation, particularly for marginalized communities. I thought that what was interesting is she says this quote, "Caring for myself is not self-indulgence, it is self-preservation, and that is an act of political warfare."
I know. I saw that quote and I was like, hells yeah. I cannot imagine how challenging it must have been to be a woman of color and a lesbian in the 60s.
In the 60s.
I cannot even imagine.
Yeah.
No and wonder she really utilized to do her soul care.
Yeah. She utilized that project to, that experience to give voice to other marginalized people and to say, hey, by political warfare, what I mean is when you have the radical enough thought that my self matters and therefore it requires care, you are flying in the face of those who say you're not enough and you're not valued enough. And so she talked about self-care as a community act of political warfare, that we together take care of each other in marginalized communities as a way to say, no, we do matter.
Wow. I love that.
Fascinating,
Honestly,
right?
I think that's really awesome.
The other person that comes up when you look at this is Michel Foucault.
Oh.
He's French. I know. He's my French
and so
buddy.
are you. Oui.
Also in the 60s, he's a philosopher, a student of psychology, specifically the history of psychology, which is so interesting, and a social theorist. So in studying psychology and the history of psychology, he talks about self-care through the lens of how it allows us to stand in our identities. He wrote the book called The History of Sexuality, The Care of Self, where he explored the concepts of technologies of self. And what he says is that, self-care sort of flies in the face of ethics. And I'll explain why. So, I'm sorry.
What I'd like to know is, how is sexuality intertwined there? Is this like a masturbation kind of vibe for self-care?
No.
Oh, I mean, I'm all about it. I think that's beautiful.
No, his work is about understanding yourself through the lens of understanding sexuality and having broader definitions. Again, remember, this is the 60s.
Yeah,
so having broader definitions for sexuality than the very heteronormative views that we have. But because he's a philosopher, a lot of his work focuses on the idea that up until then, ethics, the concept of ethics, is about focusing on other people. And what he says is that self-care is about focusing on self. So at the time, a lot of people saw that as, well, how can that be ethical? It actually comes up a lot in my work when I'll say you have to start with self. And they're like, well, what about empathy? What about other people? It's this balance of, he started to introduce into the language of ethics being about others. Well, yes, but you have to start with self and care for self if you are going to be ethical and care for others.
It's like that filling your cup, putting your oxygen mask on before.
Yeah, exactly. Okay. 2 more people. The next person to talk about is also a woman of color, also in the 60s, also an activist around the Black liberation movement, Toni Cade Bambara. She's an author, activist. She worked within Black communities to create consciousness around ideas such as feminism and Black awareness. And she was part of the faculty of the City College of New York. And in that role, she really was looking at how to make the curriculum more inclusive. So she started adding classes such as like nutrition courses, but that were targeted to people of different ethnic backgrounds to teach students more about their culture and what nutrition looks like in their culture rather than.
Why does that not exist now?
100%. I have a really good friend, Shaneri, who is a health coach, and she talks a lot about the idea that like when we say that carbs are bad, right? And she has a Caribbean family, or I'm a Persian family. Like we eat rice. Rice is everything. So it doesn't have a cultural lens to it. It's
at all.
So
plus kids learn like food pyramids in school, which is so outdated.
Yeah, totally. So that's just one example, but she also is an author and she wrote this novel called The Salt Eaters. This novel really centers on, it's fictional, but it centers on this healing event that coincides with a community festival that goes on in this fictional city of Claiborne, Georgia. And in the novel, all of these minor characters in this city use a blend of modern medical technologies, techniques, and traditional folk medicine that comes together to help remedy the main character, Velma, heal after a suicide attempt. And this book really had such reverberations in the culture at the time because of the way that it talked about caring for self and loving self. And so I found this excerpt. Can I read it to you? I really thought,
please. I was actually looking for a pen to write down the name of the book because now I want to read it.
The Salt Eaters. Okay, so this is an excerpt from the book. I am one beautiful and powerful son of a bitch, he told himself. Smart as a whip, respected, prosperous, beloved, and valuable. I have the right to be healthy, happy, and rich, for I am the baddest player in this arena or any other. I love myself more than I love money and pretty women and fine clothes. I love myself more than I love neat gardens and healthy babies and a good gospel choir. I love myself as I love the law. I love myself in error and incorrectness, walking or sleeping, sneezing, tipsy, or fabulously brilliant. I love myself doing the books or sitting down to a good game of poker. He continued his litany, having long ago stumbled upon the prime principle as a player, that self-love produces the gods and the gods are genius.
Wow, I love that.
Isn't that good?
Yes. Although I
Yeah.
do love healthy babies, but everything else is totally right.
There's one more quote from the book that I also was like, oh, yeah.
Oh, wow.
The quote is, got to give it all up. The pain, the hurt, the anger, and make room for lovely things to rush in and fill you full.
Oh,
Isn't that
I'm
beautiful?
loving these.
Mhm.
Yes.
So think about all of the kinds of things that, me included, internet reels from coaches and spiritualists talk about around,
Yeah.
allowing things to um, be let go and to allow the good things in, or to see yourself as the baddest player in the arena and believe that about yourself. And think about how she really wrote about this in a time where you didn't see a lot of that, and wrote it in this book, The Salt Eaters. So she's had a lot of impact on the culture around this idea of self-care being full self-love in this radical way.
Wow. Probably
She
in a
also
world where a lot of people were trying to bring you down.
Exactly.
Yeah,
And
I
that's
love
why
that.
it's so radical, is like this book is featuring people of color as characters
Yeah,
talking about themselves as valuable.
right. I love that.
She also was focused on community health as part of self-care. So that's her. And then one last
Yes.
person, Herbert Benson, born in 1935, also a lot of his work in the 60s. He was a cardiologist and also a pioneer in mind-body medicine. And in the 60s at Harvard Medical School, he pioneered a mind-body research study focusing on stress and the relaxation response in medicine. And in his research, he really sees the mind and body as one system in which meditation can play a significant role in reducing stress responses.
Agreed.
He introduced the term relaxation response as a scientific alternative for meditation. So, like, meditation being seen as too woo woo, it's like, cool, whatever. What's the outcome? It's relaxation. And really, the idea that, according to him, relaxation response is the ability of the body to induce decreased activity of its organs when it's in fight or flight. So, it's the opposite of a fight or flight response, and that meditation or
Calms the
relaxation
nervous
response
system.
is something that our mind can do to help our body bring our nervous system down. He's the one that, with another researcher, Robert Keith Wallace, observed that transcendental meditation reduced metabolism, rate of breathing, heart rate, and brain activity. So he had a
Wow.
lot to do with modern mindfulness and bringing it into the Western world. Eastern
What
people have
year?
known it for 1960s.
Wow.
All of
60s.
this is happening in the 60s. So such a evolution and revolution around self-care. And I think too, like, the thing about self-care is that so many of these um, areas of wisdom are ancient wisdom,
Totally. Totally.
but they were brought back into the zeitgeist in the 60s, again, by a lot of people of color and queer people, and also researchers and doctors, to say, hey, there's a whole other way of looking at self and caring for self as a way to not just grow and become better as a person, but allow your community to thrive too.
Part of my dog barking in the background. I love
Sorry.
that. And I feel like that was so ahead of its time because it still didn't really take off. I feel like it really hasn't taken off until recently. And now it's
Yeah.
all the rage.
Well, we're in a resurgence. There's a couple of movements too that I think are important to mention when you think about self-care. They're movements that you probably don't in your head line up to self-care, but they very much focused on self-care. So the first being the civil rights movement. Again, in the 60s, self-care became an essential aspect of sustaining the activists who were fighting for equal rights.
Wow.
They had to take care of themselves to do it. So the movement really emphasized collective care and mutual aid as vital to the well-being and the endurance of all of those people that were engaged in the struggle. It
Did
was a
you
core fueling element.
did you read what that looks like? What what
What is
what acts they did for this self-care?
Well, it's about one, speaking about self-care in a way that says this is something that's essential. It's your fuel. So
Right?
to pause, to come together as community, to support each other. If someone's in need in our community, making sure their needs are met. That's what
Yeah.
self-care is, and making sure that you're meeting your own needs. So this constant awareness of meet your needs first, meet the needs of your neighbor, of your compatriot, because that's what's going to build our endurance in this struggle.
Wow.
The other one is the feminist movement, but particularly the second wave feminist movement in the 60s and 70s. It saw women advocating for things like rights to health, body autonomy, and well-being.
We're still fighting.
And still fighting. Feminists really promoted self-care as a means of reclaiming control over your body and your life. And it really also challenged traditional gender roles. And that was really important in the way that we now are able to continue to challenge those gender roles. But self-care was at the core of that too. Like, we have to care about our bodies and we have to advocate for the care of our bodies,
Yes.
which again, we're still doing. Did you see recently the article that was like, the amount of information that we know about menopause is like dwarfed by 100 times around the information that we know about like cardiovascular health in men?
Oh, that's because all research is done on men.
Well, exactly. But like research. Menopause is a massive thing.
It's huge.
That how many people on the planet are women go through? We don't know shit about it.
It's true. And it's not
We're still in the struggle, y'all. But again, self-care really at the core of that movement. The LGBTQ plus rights movement. This is now, let's fast forward to the 80s and 90s during the HIV/AIDS crisis. Self-care became crucial to the LGBTQ plus community for survival. So activists and organizations created safe spaces, support networks, emphasizing the importance of self-care and mutual care in the face of a system that was neglecting and discriminating this community. And actually, Audre Lorde makes a guest. Still fighting. Audre Lorde makes a guest appearance here. Remember Audre Lorde up top? Yes. We talked about Black feminist, lesbian activist. There is a connection to her in that there's an organization that was developed in New York called the Audre Lorde Project that is still active today, with its mission is that it's a lesbian, gay, bisexual, two-spirit, trans, and gender nonconforming people of color center for community organizing, focusing on the New York area. And basically through mobilization and education, they work for community wellness and progressive social and economic justice. So she was an inspiration to this movement. So lots of really important activist movements. Then let's fast forward, because you said now we're having a resurgence. So two things that feel more modern: the wellness movement, the modern day wellness movement.
Yeah.
Around the late 20th century. So now we're talking about late 1990s.
Yeah.
And it really is this focus on holistic wellness and health.
And I feel like even in the late 90s, it was fewer and farther between than it is now.
Yeah.
Still.
Yeah.
I can't even
think. I remember in the 90s hearing about yoga and like seeing Whole Foods stores for the first time. And like that really was the moment when it started to burgeon. And the core of the wellness movement is about a holistic, multidimensional, and proactive approach to health and well-being. Meaning you're thinking about your body as one whole system, mind, body, spirit. The proactive approach having to be the way that you eat, the vitamins you're taking, how herbal supplements are included. All of this is part of this modern day wellness approach that took place. And I thought it was interesting when I looked at this, modern day wellness approach. A lot of advocates for modern day wellness will literally say things like, this explosion of wellness has generated a massive boom in our economy.
Yeah.
Right? It's like a multi-billion-dollar industry. Yeah. And so what that does is it creates criticism around the wellness movement. And what advocates of the wellness movement say is like, hey, yes, should it be something that people utilize to become billionaires? That feels a little icky. But let's not throw the baby out with the bathwater. There's so much benefit that the wellness movement has brought to people's health and well-being that even though it's created this economic upside, it's not just about that. It's about people's health really being affected through the movement.
But I do think it is watered down to some extent. Like there's less focus. And I think that's why we're talking about this today on decapitalizing it, because we've gotten so carried away with the creams and the treatments and the this and the that. And we're starting to forget. It's almost like, what's the next product I can buy for wellness? And we're forgetting that we need to be focusing inward more.
Yeah, totally. That is the problem. That is the problem, is that we are almost now so desensitized to the purpose that it kind of feels like a cool, trendy thing to do.
Totally. I just bought a red light mask, okay? Hit me up.
Yeah. No, I know. I think you know what like really brought my attention to that was watching these like 12-year-olds on TikTok
Ugh,
having
I
full
have
skincare
one.
routines
I know.
where a dermatologist had to come on the Today Show and be like, kids, you do not need retinol.
I know. It's crazy. It's crazy.
Yeah, but it's about like, it's cool rather than what is this for? How
Right.
is this helping
Why am I doing
serve
this?
my life and help me connect to myself?
I mean, not that I expect my 13-year-old to think about how to connect to herself, but yes,
Totally.
it has been so diluted now that 13-year-olds are like, let's do
Exactly.
it. Yeah.
Yeah, they have access to it. But advocates of the modern wellness movement say, like, first of all, here are some of the benefits, even though it's been diluted. One, we as a society are embracing holistic health more. So the concept of holistic health dates back thousands of years.
Right.
But now, because of this modern movement, it's been revived and popularized and it's in the mainstream. And so people are more likely to understand that, for example, when I go to the gym to exercise, it's also affecting my mental health.
Yes,
That's a
which is a
holistic.
beautiful, yeah, revelation.
Yeah, exactly. Um, they're also talking about the fact that, you know what, like, you're buying these vitamins or these green juices. It is actually preventative in some ways. So it is achieving this concept that, modern wellness movement wants to achieve, which is that you're proactively caring for self so that we don't have so many medical issues that we're reactively treating in our society.
Whew. I feel like I thought we were hopping on here to talk about massages, and I have gotten the low down today. I have been taught and educated.
All right. Well, let's talk about massages. What?
Okay. Okay.
What would you say are some of the things you do besides your gorgeous red light mask that are like consistent self-care practices for you that are connected to spending money?
Massages. One, for
Uh-huh.
example, I had an epic facial like 2 weeks ago, like
I never
beyond epic.
understand when people say that their facials are epic. Can you describe that to me? Because facials to me are something I endure.
What?
I'm
You
sorry.
I just feel like that all that tells me is you have not had a good facial. That's what that tells me.
What's a good facial?
A good facial this feels like the complete opposite of what we're talking about. It depends on the products used. It depends on what they're doing to your skin. It depends on so much. Do you only go and get like your pores squeezed? Is
No,
that
they
what you
do
mean
the
by
full. I
endure?
used to get a lot of hydrofacials where they'd like put the water
Yeah, I love
thing, like the
hydro. I love a
suction
good, but
thing,
I've
and then
had
they.
bad hydrofacials also. I've had good and bad.
But
It
what
really
defines
depends
a
on the
good facial to you?
I mean, ultimately, one, how relaxed I feel during it, and two, how good my skin looks afterwards. I walked out of there like like a glowworm. I was
Oh.
emanating. Yeah, it was beautiful. And then my
Oh,
skin
wait, I think I
lasted.
saw you.
It was right before the
You were
mitts, man.
glowing.
How good was that
Yeah.
skin? Right. And then
Yeah,
it
yeah.
lasted for like 7 to 10 days after that. And I think also is how committed the esthetician is. Like
Oh.
how she was all about it. She was like, I know if you want to come back, I know exactly how we're going to start treating your skin. And she just really was passionate about skincare. And I think that matters.
I meant I don't find them relaxing. I totally get that they make your skin look better, but they hurt.
No, come here and
Oh,
you're going to go get
okay.
this facial and it's going to rock your world. Anyway, I do that. I
TJ, I'm
also,
going back to Bucks County.
for a facial. Um, and yoga, but yoga is financial and not financial. But like I
Yes.
do go to a yoga studio where I pay a monthly fee. And I have been eyeing like these super fancy yoga mats lately and whatnot. But I also can just do yoga in my basement with my shitty $10 Amazon mat and
Yep.
honestly have almost the same uh, level of relaxation from it. Yoga is probably my greatest self care practice.
And I love that you do yoga so consistently. What are your non-paid for self-care practices?
Isn't it really awful to say that I don't have that many? Almost everything I do is financial, which I think is the point of this episode. And I could just do more yoga at home. I find myself more motivated to go to class. I don't know why.
Yeah,
For
no, totally.
during COVID, I was like always at home doing it and I loved it. It was like critical to me when the kids were home from school during all of that. Um But now, like, I definitely like to get out and go do it outside. Also, honestly, walking.
Yeah.
As I'm getting older, I used to like not understand walking. I was like, this is boring. And now I have come to value walking so much. It's such a great way to quiet
Agreed.
the mind. It's such a great way to like get off of a screen and get out of your
Yeah.
head, pop in your AirPods and listen to some great music. It's really cleansing.
Yeah, I agree. I don't know if this says something about our age, but
It
like
totally
the
does.
idea that I get to in an afternoon put in a podcast and go for a walk is
Totally.
so exciting to me.
So exciting. I know. It's so sad.
That
What
is,
about
that's
you?
good self-care.
What's your
You know,
self-care that you don't pay for?
that I don't pay for? Because I could give you a litany of that I pay for. I mean, I think you know. Um, maybe we're fast forwarding when I give you this answer, but my
Okay.
self-care has so much to do with advocating for myself.
Oh, wow. That's deep.
Like
I was like going
really,
for a walk.
no, those things for sure. And this is where we're going to get into soul care.
Yes.
But for me, self-care is, what are areas where you need to ensure that your well-being, your needs, your truths are being expressed? Like, do you care about yourself enough to be the one to advocate for you? Because ain't no one going to do it
I never
but
really
you.
thought of that as self-care, but you're totally correct.
That is the ultimate self-care. And if we look at the
Yes.
sisters and brothers, the origin of self-care in the 60s, and we look at the people of color and the queer activists,
Yeah, you're totally
that's what
right.
they're saying.
Yes, you're totally right. And I feel like I'm only really getting to that place in my life now.
Yeah.
Using your methods.
Well, I don't think it's using my methods. I think it's doing this podcast, because this podcast is so much about, hey, how can we come on here every week and be like, here's another way to get clear about what you need and to speak up.
Yeah. And that it doesn't have to be so. I feel like I grew up, I feel like a lot of my life, I felt like advocating for yourself was selfish.
Right.
And taking up too much space. And now I'm understanding that it's almost more selfish to not advocate for yourself.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Absolutely.
And then ruminate and have all these feelings about the way people are behaving or treating you. And you can very calmly advocate for yourself and kindly advocate for yourself and then feel more whole as a result.
And less resentful.
Right.
You know what another self-care is for me is the 30 to 45 minutes that you and Anais and I spend doing Friday therapy.
So good.
Before
really
we hit record.
Good. I don't think, have we talked about it on this pod before?
Yeah, we have.
It's really therapeutic. For those who don't know, every time we sign on, we're like, let's sign on early so we can really get this stuff done. We just end up sitting there and like talking and crying for 30 to 45 minutes, which just shows the value of connecting with friends and people who care and sharing things that are hard in your life and putting them out there and hearing other people's opinions, which should also be super high and is super high for me on my list of self-care, is connecting and surrounding myself with people who really, really bring me joy and fulfill me.
And who see you in your higher self. Like in all three of our examples, we'll share something and the other two will be like, but wait a minute.
Every time.
Think about what you're capable of. Think about what you did in the past. Think about like your desires. You're moving towards them. It's okay that it's hard. Like it's like a cheerleading squad.
I feel like we should do a contest where a listener gets to come into one of our Friday sessions and we do it with them. Because it feels real good in there. It feels really good in there. I can't explain it, but it feels so safe and natural and calm. Even
that's
like when we're
really
crying.
Good idea. Yeah.
I love that.
You know what?
Yeah.
We'll think about how to do this, you guys. And maybe we'll do like a little form in one of our next episodes that you can submit if you want to join us for the first 30 minutes that isn't recorded.
Secret pass. Yeah.
It's our secret therapy session.
Oh, Anais is probably over there like, I didn't sign up for this. She's listening
no
in the
one
back.
is allowed.
You and I are like, great idea. So we're talking about, I'm like, now I'm all like, yeah, I got to stop buying my facial. I got to stop doing that.
No,
I just need to start focusing. I know.
That's
my
not
question
the point.
to you is, my question to you is there harm in this consumerization of self-care? Is that harmful or is it just kind of part of the process?
Only that in the consumerization of self-care, there is a massive blockade that is created for people who don't have the socioeconomic standing to go spend money to do these things.
Right.
So what I never want is for our culture to start to believe that self-care is about having money to go get the epic facial or
Right.
to take the yoga class. And by the way, yoga communities are so mindful of this that so many of them do these like drop in and pay what you can classes, which I love. But anyway, the point is that that is the only harm. Well, not the only, that is the greatest harm in it, is whatever gatekeeping, whatever gate, is put up between the people who can and cannot afford it. And the idea then that we'll have that like, oh, well, I can't do self-care because I can't afford self-care. Absolutely not true. You can do self-care in every single moment, like we just talked about. But I don't want us to fall into this habit of thinking that self-care requires, just funds that are available for it. That's one.
Why don't, okay. There's
the second one is just that it's, if you don't connect the thing you're doing that you're spending money on to this connection to your soul, to taking that moment to understand, what do I need? Am I stepping up for myself? Am I advocating for myself? It is superficial. So the results don't last as long because it's just a moment in time. You get the thing done to you, and then you move on in your life with your noisy head and your fear systems totally operated and your shutdown systems operated that say, don't speak up, don't speak up. And so you're not getting the full lasting impact unless you connect the two things together.
I truthfully feel like I'm kind of in that bucket. I'm like, that facial was amazing. Now back to chaos. But now I do feel like I will attempt to be more mindful about it and take the relaxation from that moment and carry it through the rest of my day.
Yeah, I'm guilty of this. I love, love, love going through Sephora.
Oh, I know you do.
Buying all kinds of makeup. Remember we went to Ulta when I was there with Evie and she's like, whoa, Bean is just a different person in this store.
Every time I go into a Sephora, I immediately think of you in Georgetown.
I love it. And I get such a high from it.
I love
it. Such a high from it. And then I'll spend $250 and I'll leave. And then, it's gone in 30 minutes. And then I get a high again when I come and I unpack the makeup and I put it in a little space in my drawer.
Oh, that feels
and of
nice.
course, then I get a high when I use it. And so like there is a lasting effect. But I'm just saying, I don't want to be a hypocrite. I too am guilty of like, I'll pour a lot of money into this thing that makes me feel good in the moment.
For 12 minutes. Yeah.
For 12 minutes.
How about we flip this around and we provide some tangible ways that you can connect. Well, you can connect your external self-care. Like, what does that look like? Connecting the good massage. How does that connect to your soul? And 2, ways that are not financially related that we can take care of ourselves and our souls.
Good question, Bean.
Thank you. It's not on the outline.
I'm going to give you 3.
Oh.
Yeah.
Wow.
The first one.
Okay.
Being mindful of the why makes everything more meaningful. So when you are going to go spend money to do something self-care oriented, I would love for you to just spend a minute being like, why? Yeah. What is the thing that I'm trying to achieve out of this? And just remind yourself, this is to feel beautiful today. This is to celebrate myself.
And it's okay to want to feel beautiful, by the way. I just wanted to interject. I know, I think a lot of people have guilt over that, myself included sometimes, but it's important to feel good about yourself. That's why people like to dress a certain way, or because that's how they feel their best and then they show up as their best.
I am 100% of that camp. Like, it is so important for me, and I don't have any shame over it.
Because and if it's not important to you, then do it in whatever way is important to you.
Exactly. Yeah. No judgment, but just here. Connect to the purpose. What is the purpose of this for me? Just that awareness alone makes you mindful about the act that you're about to spend money on. Yeah. The second thing is that when you are in the process of doing the self-care thing, of being at the retreat, being in the yoga class, getting the massage, can you find 5 minutes to drop into your spirit and your soul? Can you utilize that self-care moment as a highway to a deeper part of you and just connect? Like,
what does that look like when you're like supermarket sweeping through Sephora?
Oh, that's a good question.
Right? Because that's how a lot of us do self-care, is a little shopping, a little online shopping.
Yeah. Oh, I have an answer.
Great.
For me, it's like when I'm in Sephora and I get a little buzz about it, I'll literally stop and connect to the buzz and be like, what is this? And I will really I'll get this answer of like, there's a part of my soul that also really enjoys this idea of beauty. Like, and
Great.
just connecting to, oh, this is who I am at my core. This isn't as external as I think. There's an internal part of me that lights up around this because this is something that I value. So it's like connecting the external shallow thing to like, who am I really? What is this internal feeling I have? Oh, who is that? Oh, there's my spirit in there. Cool. I think that that's, you know, a less compelling example than, for example, when you're getting a massage, using that moment when your nervous system is fully brought down and the white noise is turned down, to take a deep breath and just intentionally say, I'm going to connect to my soul right now. My deepest like desires, my most truest truths, my inner wisdom. I'm going to take a moment and allow this silence to connect me to that part of me and listen to myself for 5 minutes. That's self-care. Is and like, you have my full attention right now.
I also think the mental preparation of I'm going to really capture this feeling right now and attempt to carry it with me throughout the day and throughout the week and throughout the month. Also, I'd like a little freaking cred for my supermarket sweep reference.
That was funny.
You just breezed on by it.
That was funny.
Well, no, it doesn't count.
You know what's so funny is that as you were about to say that, I thought, God, that was funny. And then you gave me your little
not funny now
sassy pants.
Anyway,
listen, you know me.
I love your joy.
Sometimes I'm like a freaking train. Like when I'm trying to communicate something, there's no getting in my way. And I realize it's not a great trait. I gotta slow down.
It was fine. I was like, supermarket sweep. You were like, anyway. It's like, damn it.
I was like,
love that show. Anyway, I think it was really cool how you just gave an example about Sephora. I thought I was gonna stump you there. I can never stump you.
And, you know, listen, like you're not in my system. So maybe if you're listening to this, you're like, that sounds like bullshit. And that's fine. It's like, whatever, you know, you got to connect to your own system. This is my answer for me.
Yeah.
The point is like, again, I take a minute to connect to my inner world. That's all I'm saying.
As a counter,
you look like a light bulb went off on top of your head.
If you are in Sephora and you're like attempting to connect and say, what is this bringing? And then you're like, it's not bringing anything. You can then learn that what you thought may have been an act of self-care is actually not an act of self-care. It's just you wanted to buy that lipstick and now you need to come up with a new plan for a way to do some solid self-care.
Hey, Bean. Yes.
Hey, girl.
Little Buddha. I love it. Okay, I'm going to give my third one. The second question you asked me is like, what are some ways that you don't spend money? This is my third tool for you.
Okay.
Go back to what I said when Bean asked me what my act of self-care is just ask yourself, am I speaking up for that inner voice?
That's good.
Because you are the warrior, the advocate, the activist for your inner voice. And when you have needs that are unmet, speak them up. When you're uncomfortable, don't stay in situations that are uncomfortable for other people's comfort.
Don't shrink.
When you need boundaries, put them in place. Boundaries are self-care. So really making sure that you love and honor and value yourself enough to speak up for yourself. That is
that's a way harder form of self-care, a way more challenging form than getting a massage. So that's like a lifelong practice of self-care.
And getting a massage can be your doorway into connecting to your needs so that you can speak up for them.
Totally. It's all intertwined.
Yes. So Bean, here we go. We're here at the end of our show with our favorite segment, Bean's Takeaways.
My biggest takeaway from this, truly, even though I no joke, had the outline in front of me. What?
Just then. What? I loved the way you modulated your.
Oh,
go ahead. Sorry,
it's my radio voice. Even though I had it written out in front of me, like we do like very basic outlines, and then we completely go off.
Right, and then we don't
go
follow
out
them.
Of control and spiral every time, so we don't even follow them. But even though I had this very basic outline in front of me, I was not really internalizing how important. First of all, the history was absolutely fascinating because that we only had tidbits on, and I never really attributed any of this to any of that. And it's really powerful when it's positioned in that way. And two, that I have a hard time. I just like everybody else think of self-care in all of these capitalistic ways, and I think really being whole with yourself is truly the greatest form of self-care, and all of these other things may factor into it and help you get there in a certain way, but ultimately being at peace with yourself and who you are and what you put out in the world is the ultimate act of self-care. Self-love.
Beautifully said. Being
Thank you.
whole with
Soul
yourself.
care.
I
I
love that.
love the concept of soul care instead of self-care. Soul
Buy
care.
the sweatshirts coming
Bye.
soon.
Matching sweatsuit online.
Bean, that was great. I loved that
Thanks.
conversation. Guys, I hope that you took something away from this that you're going to add to your lives on your path to growth and self-actualization. As always, if you found this episode helpful, please, please, please share with your friends and family. That's the greatest way you can support us. And you can also leave us a review anywhere you're listening. And until next week, we wish you all the best. Bye.
Bye.